My nephew caught sight of me in a mini skirt, and then he reacted in a way that was truly unexpected. This is a tale of genuine betrayal. Life frequently unveils unexpected situations. I possess a tale that remains largely untold, for it is complex and layered. Have you ever felt the weight of navigating a delicate line between right and wrong, not driven by choice but shaped by the twists of life? On that day, I felt as though the universe had a twisted sense of humor, and I was the unwitting target of its playful mockery. It all began on a seemingly ordinary Saturday afternoon. I found myself occupied with the mundane, devoid of any remarkable events. On a relaxed weekend, I found myself immersed in household chores, the gentle hum of the dryer my only companion. As I rummaged through my closet, sifting through garments destined for donation, I stumbled upon a vintage miniskirt. Though I no longer donned such attire, I felt I had transcended that chapter. Yet, as I grasped the skirt, a flood of memories came rushing back. It stood as a remnant of my younger days, an era when self-assurance flowed effortlessly and existence was centered on pleasure and freedom. In a moment of spontaneity, I chose to don it and gracefully slipped into its embrace. With a sense of skepticism, I approached the mirror, yet a soft chuckle escaped my lips as I beheld how the fabric embraced my form more tightly than I remembered, highlighting both the less flattering and potentially appealing aspects of my figure. As I was merely conducting an experiment to see if it would fit, a sudden tap at the door interrupted my thoughts. Who might it be? I whispered softly to myself. My hair was in disarray. I was not dressed to impress, nor was I expecting anyone when I opened the door. My nephew stood there. Jason had shed the remnants of childhood. He had grown into a more refined version of himself. At the age of 22, he was in peak condition. With his broad shoulders and an undeniable aura of confidence, he possessed the kind of presence that could command attention the moment he stepped into a room. He carried a bag of tools, a casual smile ever present on his face. "Auntie, I received your call about the leaky faucet." I remembered that I had entirely overlooked the need to invite him over to fix the sink in the guest bathroom. Despite a twinge of embarrassment regarding my outfit, I opted to downplay it and simply laughed it off. "Certainly, do come in. The restroom can be found further down the corridor." He strolled by, and I caught a glimpse of him pausing briefly, his eyes darting in my direction before quickly looking away. It may have been nothing more than a figment of my imagination, but an extraordinary ambience lingered in the air. As Jason set about his task with the sink, I found myself retreating to my closet. Yet amidst the mundane, there lingered an unusual tension, neither unwelcome nor expected. Have you ever experienced the peculiar feeling when someone's eyes rest a moment too long, even as they strive for discretion? I first brushed it off as mere overthinking, given that he is my nephew. As I made my way past the bathroom to grab something from the kitchen, Jason suddenly called out, "Hey, Auntie, could you come here for a moment? I find myself in need of some assistance." The unfolding events deepened my bewilderment. As I stepped into the bathroom, I discovered Jason crouched down, his sleeves rolled up to reveal his strong, sun-kissed arms. With a wrench clutched in one hand, he gestured toward the faucet with the other. "I believe the pipe is stuck," he stated, glancing up at me. "Would you mind holding this as I try to loosen it?" With a nod, I leaned forward to take hold of the faucet. The bathroom was small, and before I knew it, we were almost shoulder to shoulder. I tried to ignore the proximity, but I could feel the warmth of his arm brushing against mine as he focused on his task. As I cast my gaze in his direction, it was then that I became aware of it. Jason. His attention was not exclusively drawn to the pipe. His eyes often wandered in my direction, as though he were trying to uncover some hidden truth. It was a nuance hidden from the eyes of others, yet I sensed it keenly. "All was well?" I asked, breaking the silence that enveloped us. He looked at me, hesitating for a moment, before a smile broke across his face. His familiar, easy smile met my nervous laughter, as I tried to ease the tension in the air. "So you are the authority on this matter, aren't you?" There existed a remarkable absence of pressure. Nevertheless, I found it impossible to ignore how his gaze lingered for an inordinate length of time. After a brief pause, he finally let go of the pipe and stood up, brushing his hands against his trousers. "Everything is complete. It ought to be as good as new," he remarked. I expressed my gratitude in response. In a bid to seem casual, he said, "You're a lifesaver," as he leaned against the counter, his gaze fixed on me with an enigmatic look. "It seems, dear Auntie, that I have yet to witness you donning such attire." I found myself momentarily paralyzed, a warmth creeping into my cheeks. This? I let out an awkward laugh, nervously tugging at the hem of my miniskirt. I stumbled upon it tucked away in the rear. Concerning the belongings in my closet that I planned to donate, Jason initially chose to say nothing. He kept his gaze fixed on me, his eyes revealing an enigmatic emotion. Then he smiled, but this time it carried a weight, as if he truly comprehended. "It suits you," he remarked, his voice softer than normal. Words escaped me and I found myself stumbling over my thoughts. "I appreciate it, I guess." Feeling a wave of self-consciousness, I quickly made my way to the bathroom, seeking to create some space between us. As I stepped out, Jason trailed closely behind Auntie, he remarked. As he halted me in the hallway, I pivoted to confront him, my heart racing wildly. "Indeed." He paused as if he were in pursuit of the perfect expression. "Have you ever sensed that events unfold for a purpose?" "What do you mean by that?" I inquired, a true sense of bewilderment washing over me, as he parted his lips to respond, only to shake his head, chuckling softly, dismissing it all with a wave of his hand. "Erase my words from your mind." Yet I remain haunted by the intensity of his gaze and the lingering resonance of his voice. Long after he departed that day, I found myself nestled on the couch that night, aimlessly scrolling through channels, attempting to dispel the lingering awkwardness from earlier. I repeatedly reassured myself that it was trivial, that I was merely overanalyzing the entire situation. Ultimately, Jason was part of the family. Just as I began to regain my sense of normalcy, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I leaned over to pick it up, and there it was, a message from Jason. "Dear Auntie, may I pose a question to you?" I gazed at the screen, wrestling with the decision to respond, sensing an oddity in the timing that lingered in the air. What could be the reason for his message at this moment? After a moment's pause, I responded, "Of course, what's on your mind?" His response came in a heartbeat, and I find myself continually pondering today and you. It seemed unique. I suppose it left me astonished. A gentle flutter stirred within my stomach. What message was he trying to express? My fingers hovered above the keyboard, caught in a moment of reflection as I considered my reply. In the end, I chose to respond with a neutral statement. I was simply experimenting with some vintage garments. He responded to my message without delay. I noticed the faint flicker of the typing indicator, though it seemed to take him a moment before he finally replied. When his message finally reached me, I was taken aback. "You appear to be in excellent spirits." I speak with utmost sincerity in my declaration. My eyes were fixed on the screen, a wave of disbelief washing over me. My heart quickened. Could this truly be considered a harmless comment? Or could there be a more profound significance? Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a loss for both my emotions and my response. After what felt like an endless stretch of time, I finally replied, "Thanks, Jason. Your kind words are truly valued." He expressed a desire for it to bring closure to the issue, though he sensed, almost instinctively, that it would not, repeating his thoughts once more. Today, I found myself grappling with a peculiar sensation that I am hesitant to articulate. "Did you?" My breath was caught in my throat, a tightness that gripped me. I found myself treading on treacherous terrain, filled with uncertainty about how to find my way through it. Jason transcended the role of a mere acquaintance. He was my beloved nephew. The emotions he thought he was feeling were, in truth, misdirected. Yet, instead of casting him aside without a second thought, I felt a pause, possibly driven by curiosity or a wish to spare him any discomfort. As a result, I refrained from replying right away, and the typing indicator returned once more. I withdrew my earlier remark to sidestep any discomfort, breathing out unsteadily, caught in a mix of relief and unease. I comforted myself with the notion that it was merely a misunderstanding, convinced he would eventually move on, and that a sense of normalcy would return. As I placed my phone aside, an unmistakable feeling washed over me. This was just the beginning of what was to unfold. The next morning, as I began my day with a steaming cup of coffee, still tousled from sleep, a knock at the door sent my heart into a flutter. I had not expected any guests to arrive. As I swung the door open, I was greeted by the sight of Jason standing there. His hands tucked casually in his pockets, he exuded an air of effortless indifference. Yet, a distinct shift in his demeanor was evident. His usual carefree smile had vanished, replaced by a solemn expression that was unfamiliar to me. I nodded at Jason, striving to mask my surprise. "What brings you here at such an early hour?" He stepped in unbidden, as if the threshold held no barriers. As fate would have it, I found myself nearby and decided to pay a visit. The rationale was fragile at best. Though Jason lived far from my vicinity, I chose to hold back from confronting him. Rather than confronting the issue, I shut the door and trailed behind him into the living room. He perched on the couch, leaning forward, elbows resting on his knees. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension. "Is everything okay?" I asked as I settled into my chair. He looked up at me, his eyes searching mine, and reflecting on last night. "I had no desire to bring you any discomfort." A gentle sigh escaped my lips, a wave of relief washing over me as he recognized the issue at hand. "That is perfectly fine, Jason. Let us completely set aside the matter." Yet, he shook his head, insisting that he could not simply let it slip from his memory. Regarding the matter at hand, I stand by my words. I found myself frozen, grappling with the right words to say. Such communication is not befitting of family members. With a sense of careful deliberation, Jason and I began by asserting, "I believe you are mistaken. Your feelings are but a mirage. It is simply a reality," he interjected, his tone firm yet uncontentious. "I recognize that it is indeed a mistake, and I have been striving to withstand it." I tried to push it aside, but my mind continued to be engulfed by it. My heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions surged within me. Astonishment, confusion, and a flicker of shame danced in the shadows of my mind. "What led us to this moment?" "Jason," I urged, my voice trembling, "you must put an end to this. This behavior is not suitable for our relationship, dear nephew." He nodded with deliberation, his gaze directed toward the ground. "I comprehend. I recognize the error in my actions, yet I found myself driven to articulate my feelings, for to stifle them was a source of great anguish." In that fleeting instant, the room was shrouded in stillness, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock mounted on the wall. Words eluded me, leaving me in a state of uncertainty about how to mend this predicament, or whether it was even possible to save it. In the end, I stood up, compelled to put space between us. "Jason, I think it's time for you to take your leave. We both need a moment to reflect on this." He looked at me, his expression a mixture of regret and longing. "Very well," he whispered softly, "but this is not the final discussion we will have on this matter." He left without another word, and as the door clicked shut, a wave of relief washed over me, mingling with an undercurrent of anxiety as the evening sun stretched shadows across the living room. The sight of an envelope jutting out from beneath the front door caught my attention, and a tightness gripped my chest as I drew nearer, already knowing its origin before I even picked it up. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper, my heart pounding in my ears. The handwriting bore the unmistakable mark of Jason, characterized by its neatness and methodical precision, suggesting that every word had been chosen with great care. The message conveyed, "Auntie, I understand your wish for my departure, and I honor that, yet I cannot pretend that these feelings are absent. I am making no requests. I simply want you to grasp that if you desire for me to create some distance, I would do so without a moment's pause. On the other hand, should there be even a hint of mutual feeling, please let me know, as I will be anticipating your reply." I stood there staring at the words, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, anger, flattery, and fear all vying for my attention. A torrent of thoughts surged through my consciousness. Could he possibly be serious? Could it be that I experienced this feeling, though a part of me lingered in uncertainty, reluctant to let it go completely. I carefully folded the paper and tucked it away in a drawer, hidden from view yet lingering in my thoughts. I assured myself that remaining unresponsive was the wisest path to take, that turning a blind eye would yield the best outcome. Yet, beneath the surface, I sensed that this was far from finished. As the night deepened and I sought the embrace of sleep, my phone buzzed once more. Jason was the one. "Jason, I realize I had mentioned I wouldn't interrupt you, yet I seek assurance that my message reached you." I stared at the message, pondering how to reply. In the end, I responded affirmatively, acknowledging receipt, "But Jason, this must come to an end." His response came with remarkable immediacy. It proves to be harmful for both parties involved. If that is your wish, I shall stop. I would appreciate your honest input. Hold on to any sentiment for me, even if it's just a trace. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, aware that any admission would only worsen the predicament, while denial seemed utterly insincere. In response, I said, "Jason, you are my nephew." That is all I can express. Though it was not the reply he sought, it was the sole answer I could offer. The next morning I found myself at work, keen to shift my focus away from the happenings of the past few days. My work became my refuge, a space where I could immerse myself in tasks and set aside personal troubles. As I sat at my desk sifting through a cascade of emails, an unsettling sensation washed over me, as though an unseen presence was watching my every move. I gazed upward, my body suddenly still. Jason lingered just beyond the office window, his hands tucked firmly into his pockets, embodying a blend of inner turmoil and determination. What was he up to? I whispered softly, a tightness gripping my chest. I quickly took my leave and stepped outside, hoping to prevent him from entering and worsening the circumstances. "Jason, what brings you here?" I asked, striving to keep my voice steady. "I needed to see you," he said, his voice low but filled with sincerity. "Last night, I noticed your silence regarding my inquiry, Jason. I have previously expressed that this situation is detrimental to well-being. We cannot persist in this conversation. Yet you offered no counter," he noted, stepping nearer. "You failed to mention yourself." A void enveloped me as I retreated, my fingers gripping the strap of my bag tightly. "This matter transcends emotions, Jason. The essence lies in the realm of ethics. Your perception of this matter is mistaken." With a deep sigh, he ran his fingers through his hair. "I acknowledge its inherent wrongness. I have reminded myself innumerable times, yet I find myself unable to master my emotions." His words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Finding myself at a loss for words, I turned to leave. He proclaimed, "Anti-wait." He took hold of my arm with a gentle yet resolute grip, making me pause as I looked down at his hand before locking eyes with him. His face bore an unpolished vulnerability that rendered it nearly impossible to simply turn away. He asserted that he was not trying to destroy your life or make things more difficult for you. "I seek clarity regarding the potentiality of this matter. If there is nothing available, I will take my leave." His declaration, "You'll never have to see me again," hit me like a physical blow. The thought of him cutting all ties made my heart race with unease. Yet I realized that continuing down this path would only lead to more suffering for both Jason and me. I said, my voice trembling, "Your family. This is all that it can ever be," he asserted with a nod. Slowly, his shoulders sagged as he took a step back, murmuring, "All right, I understand. I shall hold back from intervening as I take in the scene around me." As he turned to leave, a peculiar mix of relief and sorrow washed over me, convinced that this moment signified an ending and that we could finally move forward. Yet, as the evening unfolded, a call arrived that shattered the calm and altered the course of my night. Jason found himself entangled in an unfortunate accident. As I stepped into the hospital, his words transformed everything for me. The call arrived in the late hours. As the evening drew to a close and I was readying myself for slumber, the persistent vibration of my phone on the coffee table caught my attention, revealing Jason's name glowing on the screen. My stomach dropped, yet it was not Jason on the other end of the line. A woman's voice from Mercy General broke the silence, delivering the news. "Your nephew has been in an accident. Your presence is being requested by him." A wave of panic washed over me, and without a moment's hesitation, I grabbed my keys and rushed out the door. As I stepped into the hospital, my heart quickened with anticipation. As I stepped into the ER, the swinging doors parted, and my gaze swept across the room until it landed on him. Jason reclined on the bed, a small cut marring his forehead and his arms secured in a sling. As I drew near, he lifted his gaze, his complexion wan but his eyes still held that unmistakable intensity. "What transpired?" I asked, my voice laced with worry. He bestowed a subtle smile. "It's merely a minor collision, Jason," I remarked with annoyance. "Your actions have stirred a great deal of worry within me." He let out a soft chuckle, followed by a fleeting grimace. With a hand pressed against his side, he uttered, "I apologize. I found myself at a loss regarding whom else to reach out to. I let out a sigh, carefully placing a chair beside his bed. I declared my presence in this moment. "How are you faring?" Certainly, he inclined his head, a gentle warmth enveloping his expression. "Indeed, there is a message I feel compelled to share with you, Jason." He declared that this moment was not the right one. His voice remained steady, even as the vulnerability flickered in his eyes. My reason for not reaching out was not solely the accident. I reached out as I had an epiphany. A wave of confusion washed over me, leaving me unsure of the path ahead. "What do you represent?" As the conversation unfolded, he found his gaze fixed upon his hands, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of the hospital blanket. As I pondered the grim prospect of not making it through, my mind was enveloped by a profound love and the weight of my many missteps, coupled with an urgent wish to hold on to you, Jason. I began to articulate my thoughts, but he lifted a hand to cut me off. "In order to avoid any disruption, I would like to convey this thought," he pleaded. "I recognize that I have crossed lines, and I detest myself for it. Yet this is not a passing feeling for me. My feelings for you run deeper than for anyone else, and though I recognize the inappropriateness of it, I find myself powerless to resist." His words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Words eluded me completely. A fragment of my being longed to offer him solace, to reassure him that all would turn out well, but another part understood that this was not a situation I could mend with simple, comforting phrases. Just as I was about to gather my thoughts, a nurse stepped into the room, easing the atmosphere. With a polite yet firm smile, she announced that visiting hours had come to an end. I stood up, a mix of relief and overwhelm washing over me. "Take a moment to rest, Jason. We shall revisit this matter at a later time." He nodded, his gaze steady as I made my way out and drove home. I frequently found myself reflecting on his words in my mind. I was convinced I had chosen wisely in leaving, yet upon my return, an unsettling aura enveloped the home, compelling me to reconsider all that I thought I knew as I drew near. The house emanated an unsettling stillness as I made my way down the driveway. As I stepped inside, I slipped off my shoes and noticed a small package resting on the kitchen table, its surface adorned with my name, elegantly penned in Jason's distinctive handwriting. With a moment's pause, I stood there, my hands quivering ever so slightly as I prepared to unveil what lay within. Within, I discovered a letter accompanied by a modest photo album. The letter began with, "Auntie, I understand your wish for me to stop reaching out. Yet I feel compelled to express everything, even if this marks our last exchange. I invite you to take a moment to read this and explore the album in its entirety. If you wish for me to step away from your life, I shall respect your desires." I carefully opened the letter, my gaze moving over the words. Upon my return, an unmistakable shift in our dynamic became apparent to me. First, it eluded my understanding. At first, I viewed it merely as admiration or reverence. Yet, it slowly became clear that it surpassed those feelings. I understand the potential interpretations of this, and I have made an effort to counteract it. Nonetheless, I find myself unable to proceed with that. Change the way I feel. Your unwavering support has surpassed that of anyone else in my life. Your presence during my darkest times has not gone unnoticed, and I truly appreciate your unwavering concern. With a moment's pause, my heart raced in my chest. The weight of his words was almost suffocating. Still, I pressed on with my reading. This album was crafted as a tribute to all the things I cherish about you, not crossing any boundaries, but rather serving as a means to navigate my emotions. You'll find photos of us from family gatherings, moments where you were laughing or just being yourself. I'm sharing this with you because I don't want to keep secrets anymore. I'll respect whatever decision you make, but I couldn't let this go unsaid. I set the letter down and opened the album. The photos were familiar family barbecues, holiday dinners, and random snapshots I didn't even remember being taken. Each one was accompanied by a small note in Jason's handwriting pointing out details he appreciated, how happy I looked, at how kind I was to others, and how much he admired my strength. Tears welled up in my eyes. It was overwhelmingly touching and deeply unsettling. I closed the album and sat there for a long time trying to process everything. Jason wasn't just expressing infatuation, he was laying bare his heart in a way that felt impossible to ignore. But what could I do? I refrained from discouraging him, not only because it was morally objectionable, but also because it would jeopardize our family, but completely excluding him seemed as harsh considering the evident distress he was experiencing. Before I could determine my course of action, my phone buzzed again. Jason sent a message inquiring if I had received the package. He requested confirmation of its receipt, and indicated that if I wished for him to leave I should simply say so and he would depart by tomorrow. I contemplated Jason's message for what seemed like an eternity, my emotions clashing with my rationality. In an uncontrollable struggle, he had placed the decision squarely in my hands, a choice that could irrevocably affect both our lives and our family. I responded, instructing Jason to visit the following day for a discussion. The next morning he arrived punctually, exhibiting both anxiety and optimism. I welcomed him inside, and we took seats together, situated opposite one another in the living room. The atmosphere was laden with unexpressed sentiments. Jason, I commenced, my tone resolute yet tender, I have perused the letter and examined the album. I recognize the considerable thought and effort you invested, and I cannot deny its emotional impact on me. However, we must establish certain boundaries for both our well-being. He acknowledged my words with a nod, though his demeanor remained cautious. I comprehend. I only required you to be informed. That is all I am aware of regarding my emotions, I stated, leaning forward. I must convey that I love you as family. That is the extent of my feelings. Your emotions towards me stem from appreciation and thankfulness, which is okay, but we must not conflate those sentiments for an alternative. It would ultimately be detrimental to both of us. He gazed at his hands, his expression a blend of relief and melancholy. I comprehend, he stated softly. I do not wish to lose you, Auntie. I will endeavor to release this matter. I extended my hand and grasped his, applying a little pressure. You will not lose me, Jason, but you need to take some time to figure out what's really going on in your heart. Maybe talk to someone who can help you sort through these feelings. He nodded again, and for the first time in days I saw a flicker of peace in his eyes. We sat there for a while longer, talking about lighter things, his plans for the future and how he wanted to focus on his career and hobbies. By the time he left, I felt like a weight had been lifted, even if things weren't completely back to normal. Jason kept his. He gave us both some space, focusing on himself and seeking help to work through his emotions. Over time, our relationship returned to something closer to what it had been before, supportive, familial, and unclouded by confusion. It wasn't easy, but we both learned from the experience. I learned the importance of setting boundaries and addressing issues head-on, while Jason found clarity and a sense of self that didn't rely on anyone else. Looking back, I'm grateful we were able to navigate such a difficult situation without losing the bond that mattered most to family.